You're not in the shot right now.
Interview 1.
When he was born with a genetic condition called tuberous sclerosis. And he started having seizures when he was 5 months old. And at 20 months old, he was diagnosed with autism. The tuberous sclerosis is a genetic condition, and it causes benign tumors to form in his brain.
Saskatchewan Finance Minister Rod Gandafor comes to the door, working for the candidate in our riding. I said to him, well, our issue is autism, and we need some services. And he said, well, you know what? Potash is deaf. He wouldn't look at you. He didn't even know he was here.
He made no sounds.
Yeah, but there was...
Pay attention to me. That's it.
And not... Even that was sort of vague, right? He didn't know the rest of us were here. He just wandered off by himself. He was a little boy all alone in his own little world.
Days where he's really upset with me or screaming or, we don't know what he wants. Just seeing their struggles as a family, I guess, is what's really emotional for me. Oh my God, there's been so many changes in Andy since I started working with him. At the start, it was so hard to even just get his attention. He was so pulled away from and just secluded, totally not engaged in anything that was going on in his environment or with us. We were working on things like just saying the letter B, the sound B, simple thing like that, and I mean, his attention was seconds you could get his attention for. Now he can sit and attend for 10 minutes at a time. Like, unbelievable attention span. His language is advanced so much, it blows me away when I go back after I haven't been there for a little bit and I hear him. He flew through learning all of his sounds. He knows words, numbers, he can identify objects, letters, shapes, everything. He knows all of the basics.
Well, I mean, we had some video of like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile and a cartoon character running. You try to get all of those different types of running and then put it together for him that this is all running, even though it all looks different. It's all the same action.
I mean, if you work on something that's too close, like if we're working on categories and say we're working on animal, but we're working on another program which is features and it has tail in it, but then it's too close together and he gets confused. He doesn't know what you're asking for, and he really has to listen to the question, which isn't his strong suit if he's not having a good day. So it's very confusing. You can't do things that are too similar.
And he does if he's seen the picture before and he knows what that picture was, what you were asking.
If it's a dog and you ask him where the tail is, he's gonna say animal.
Yeah, because that's what he saw it with last time. He's memorized that this is an animal.
They're the most involved parents I've ever seen. Korean, every time I go over there, she's doing work, looking up things. Like, it's a whole business for them almost. She's constantly working at Andy's therapy. It's always on her mind, and they're always fighting to, get somewhere, progress. And honestly, the most involved and activist family. That's why I continued working with them for years, because she inspires me that cares so much and wants just the absolute best for Andy.
See, and we had it. we had the brass ring in our grasp, Tanner. We went to a meeting with the Minister of Education. There was a pilot project that was run in where? Northwest School Division, where they taught ABA to all the people that were involved with all the kids' special needs, and the results were fantastic. The woman that came up with it took us with her to the ledge. We had a meeting with the minister. He was extremely moved. They were going to, it was my understanding that they were going to implement the program, and subsequent to that there was a change in portfolio and it died right there.
Well, I mean, I think there's a few things. The first one, I think, is that we've made it easy for people to avoid taking responsibility for things, precisely by what you described, which is that, you know, something can be not my concern or not my department. I mean, it's very easy to pass the buck on to somebody else. I think the flip side of that, though, is that I think a lot of institutions are really, really afraid of consequences. I mean, institutions tend to institute policies based on fear of legal reprisal rather than on the principle. So anytime a policy is instituted, I find, you know, with places like schools, what seems to underlie that is we don't want to get sued.
And I guess 50 years of peer-reviewed science just hasn't quite convinced them that this is the way to go. And part of the other issue is there's no second place. There isn't another therapy that has, say, 35 years. You know, where you could say, well, you know, this is 50, but this is 35, and we'd prefer this. There is nothing else that has any scientific proof that it works at all.
Autism, the diagnosis of autism is lifelong, and so they need the therapy more throughout their whole life. But with the school and the home and the SLP and all these different professionals, it's so important that they're all on the same page and working together, because otherwise, if you're doing something at home, mom and dad are doing one thing, and then they go to school and they're doing a skill that's already been learned 6 months ago. These children with autism don't know what's going on because they're being taught different things in different environments. And it's so hard because communication is one of the main impairments of autism. And if they're struggling with communication in every environment that they're in, they're being taught different methods of communication or different ways of learning, it makes it really challenging.
On several occasions, we tried contacting Douglas Park School, both the principal or vice principal. Unfortunately, we never got a reply. The argument they have is that the school, especially elementary school, is funded by the people. So why can't the people see the product that they're paying for?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent point, and I think one thing that schools, I mean, it's really ironic because on the one hand, schools expect a lot more parental input than I certainly had when I went to school. I mean, you know, when I was in elementary school, the idea was we were there, and whatever the teacher did was, you know, it was this closed box, and parents were never, I don't think they were discouraged from getting involved, but they certainly were never encouraged to get involved. Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, parent drivers and helpers, and, you know, I mean, they can't go on field trips unless they have people to drive kids and that kind of thing. So yeah, on the one hand, they look for this parent, and, you know, there's agendas that we have to sign every night and all mm-hmm. that kind of stuff, and monitor homework and that sort of thing. So yeah, on the one hand, there's this parental involvement, but on the other hand, there are always these walls that go up. So that's an excellent point about, you know, why can't we go in and observe? And I think, again, there's this suggestion of legal liability. You know, what if something were to happen, you know, while the parent was in the building? Would we be responsible? I'm sure if you pressed it far enough, you'd probably get something along those lines that they've been advised to say.
The government doesn't track how many cases of autism are diagnosed in Saskatchewan annually, so we have no government-sponsored statistics as to how many cases there are in the province. And
I've got a number of around 1,500.
that's Probably, that's, I don't know where you would have got that, Russ, but the ratio is 1 in 150. And if there's 1 million people in this province, that's about 6,500 cases. And 1 in 150 is pretty conservative. The actual number is probably 1 in 96.
There's many kids undiagnosed.
There's a lot of kids undiagnosed, and I think why the government doesn't track the diagnosis, I think
Put a dollar figure on how much.
they don't, you can't nail them down to a per capita figure on the spending. 7 million or 6 million sounds like a lot of money being put in, but if you hear that there's 6,000 cases, suddenly 6 million isn't all that much.
You folks have been very, very proactive in pursuing this, and by your admission, you've brought some change. And so, and you're saying, you know, it's not the same as Alberta. We understand that, but we're moving in a direction that is positive.
We're not so sure.
Okay.
You're spending the money.
Yeah.
We think you're pissing it away. The government doesn't recognize the only therapy that has any scientific evidence towards its efficacy. The Lovaas method of applied behavioral analysis has 50 years of peer-reviewed science to prove that it works. And it is something that the government of Saskatchewan, via the Ministry of Health or Education or Social Services, just isn't quite sold on yet. And they would prefer to spread their money around to several things, ABA being one of them. The problem is that all those other things have absolutely no proof that they work.
Okay. When I leave this house, what is it you want me to do?
I want you to stop wasting the money. I want the money
First of all,
spent in an effective way. You know, right now the government is giving the money to the health regions, and the health regions are, I don't even know what to tell you, Russ. I don't know what they're doing with it. You know.
Okay.
I mean, really, the gold ring for us. The gold ring for us would be individualized funding, and I'm not asking the government to write me a check on the 1st of January. I'm saying review my invoices, pay the ones you think are legit. That's all. I mean, we're 20 grand a year out of pocket for what we're doing. If our son had been left to the whims of the state, he would be. I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but he'd be completely retarded. You wouldn't be able to teach him, you wouldn't be able to help him, you wouldn't be able to do anything with him. He would be so screwed up, Russ, if it wasn't for what we personally have done out of pocket, he would be lost. And you're still new over there. The longer you're in there, the more isolated you get from me.
Well, that's not my goal.
I know, but that's a very serious pitfall. If one thing came off that piece of paper, I'd like you to go talk to Ken Kravets tomorrow and ask him about that pilot project and what he thought of it. And if we could get that back on track.
Her name was Carolyn Forsey.
Carolyn Forsey was her name. Yeah, he was moved, to say the least.
I can supply you with a copy of it.
No, we can supply a copy of the proposal. I'm sure he'd remember it. I really think he would.
I think you
He
would.
was just so moved by it.
How can you get that to me?
We'll hand deliver it to Becky.
Sure.
Drop it
I'll
off.
work with you.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm going to do two things.
No, it was-
I will talk with Mr. Kravets, just to get a perspective from him on your situation. I'm sure that he remembers you. And I will get Becky to email you, if you've got some contact information, a copy of the appeal process.
Yeah, please don't.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ. We appreciate you coming over and listening.
No problem.
It's that Douglas Park got to stick together thing.
All the challenges that are ahead of you. You need a lot of support and a lot of family support. But, I mean, every time Andy says a new word or gets a new sound or learns to master a new task, it's all worth it.
Just amazing things like he says I love you to his parents, and I think that is one of the best things that parents with a child with autism can have, is that emotional and meaningful language from their son or daughter. It's wonderful.
Give me a second, I need to get my story straight. My friends are in the bathroom getting higher than the Empire State. My lover, she's waiting for me just across the bar. My seat's been taken by some asking about a scar, and I know I know you're trying to forget, but between the drinks and subtle things, the holes in my apologies, you know, I'm trying hard to take it back. So if by the time the bar closes and you feel like falling down, I'll carry you home tonight.
Oh, careful.
Set the world on fire. We can burn brighter than the sun. So if by the time the bar closes and you feel like falling down, I'll carry you home tonight.